What exactly is art? How do you define art? Is there a set of arbitrary traits and preconceived ideas that denote something's artistic value? Is it more objectified than that? What is the purpose of art, and how does it influence personal and societal development? Can it be used for political and social movements? These questions have weighed down upon my conscience for quite some time, and considering the lack of appropriate and adequate research regarding the subject, I'm quite possibly in the minority here. With that in mind, I wanted to set out to divulge the answers for these questions as best as I could. The first obstacle I faced was where to start. How do you go about measuring such subjective and abstract and opinionated data? Fortunately, I came across a research project done by Joshua Gwetskow, who shares my struggle of accumulating this kind of data. He cited a graph made by author Kevin F. McCarthy that he used, which is pictured here. I used this as a guide and reference when collecting data in my research. I decided to interview people of various backgrounds on the different subjects of art. I also created a survey with questions that reach people from ages 18 to 60 and would supplement the testimonies given by the interviewees. Now that we've gotten the preliminaries out of the way, let us begin on the journey into the world of art.
Art, by definition, is subjective because really what defines art is a point of view to me. Whether the work of art is physical or conceptual, it has to do with the lens through which the artist saw or conceived something. So I believe that it is the artist's perspective that determines that what the art is. Therefore, it is by definition subjective.
Art to me is basically just, it's kind of cliche, but just like the purest form to express yourself. I mean, there's so many different variations of different styles of art and ways to produce art and create art, even like unconventional ways that some people might think, I guess. So to me, I think it's really an individualized practice almost of how to express yourself and convey a certain thing.
I think that everyone takes different meanings from different forms of art. And I think that while art can be very subjective to the artist, sometimes when they're creating it, you have this specific picture in your mind of like, I want to do this to symbolize this or that. Or a poet can be writing something with a specific purpose, but then years later someone else finds something different to it. I think that there's definitely objectivity when you're creating it because you have a purpose to what you're doing and because it's thought out and planned out, and in your head you picture why you're doing something, why you're writing something, why you're drawing something, why you're singing something. But people can find different meanings to it and different emotions to it, and they can apply it into their own lives.
The first part of this pilgrimage was to define what art is. The majority of the people interviewed had very similar views on art. It boils down to art is what an individual makes of it, which is a pretty ambiguous and arbitrary statement, though there are some who rival this train of thought.
You know, what you may see as art, I may not see it as that. You know, someone that makes houses and creates those blueprints may see that as a form of art from their eyes because they're designing it, they're putting their emotion into it. But when another person walks into that house, they don't see the same thing. They just see a house, and they don't see that emotion that was put behind it. They don't see that creativity that was put behind it. They just see a house with a roof, you know?
Mr. Roman brings up the point of trying to find objectivity in the subjective nature of art with his house example. Can art be fundamentally broken down into structured and methodized categories? Well, in the name of research, Yes, Rhonda M. Maines, music professor at the University of Arkansas, tries to break down art in her article titled The Creation of a Subculture, The Decline of the Arts in a Society Dominated by Technology, Science, and Economics, as she delves into why the participation in arts may be declining. She says a Picasso painting may be a masterpiece to an art critic and a childish rendering of nonsense to someone with no background in serious art, alluding to a sort of structure in perceiving art. In reference to classical music, she also says, it is appreciated on a different level by someone with an understanding of the form, the timbres, and the cultural history of the piece. She believes that one must have a full understanding of a certain art to fully appreciate serious art, as she calls it. Though it may be true that one who is more well-versed may appreciate the idiosyncrasies and artistic value of something more than another, it is not objectively denounced that piece or work as art. This is seen in the survey I had constructed and sent out. There's a question that asks what you might consider an art form, and out of 88 replies, rock stacking, welding, and construction had the smallest percentages of them all. This is most likely due to people who are not aware of the artistic merit these outlets can provide. This data is in direct correlation with the results of Maines' article, as she states that some people may categorize certain things as non-artful due to their naivety in regards to the artistic value in certain activities or works. So, although art can be vaguely objectified for research purposes, there still doesn't seem to be a way to fundamentally categorize what qualifies as true art or not true art.
The memory that I always think of as being really formative for me was the first time I went to a ballet, and the feeling of wonder at the ability to create this whole new world in front of me, and the grace and the beauty of the dancers, and the spectacle of it was quite entrancing. And I was very, very young, single digit age. I don't know exactly how old, maybe 8. So that's a particularly powerful memory in terms of the emotion and the beauty and the awe. It was an awe-inspiring experience.
There was one night, I distinctly recall, my parents dropped me off downtown Phoenix. I was hanging out with some people, and they came back a few hours later to pick me up, and they asked a police officer who was in the area. Everything was blocked off. They walk up and they say, "Hey, have you seen my son? Describe what I'm wearing." And the police officer says, "Yeah, he's in the ambulance up there." And my mom starts freaking out, doesn't know what's going on. Well, it's First Friday, and I was there to film the coverage of a band who was performing. And the ambulance happened to be one of the nation's top dance crews that they brought in. It's this old vintage ambulance. And I had wandered through, and I had managed to talk my way into borrowing somebody's camera, going up on stage, getting in the ambulance with this troupe I'd never met. And the ambulance came out on stage, dancers burst out, everybody's having a party. It's just amazing. And I'm on stage in front of about 10,000 people, just shutting down downtown Phoenix. And that was I get goosebumps, I just got chills thinking about it. That was one of the coolest experiences, and that led me to...
In this next chapter, I decided to look into the purpose of art and its psychological and social and even political influences. There's a surprising amount of research regarding the psychological effects of art. In one article written by Lars Olaf Birken, Boinkum Benson Conlin, and Sven Erik Johansson, they said verbal expression of traumatic experiences through writing or talking improves physical health, enhances immune function, and is even associated with fewer medical visits. In short, they found that participating in something with artistic merit acts as a healthy coping mechanism and outlet for troubled minds. Another article called The Coming Up Taller Report by Judith Humphreys Whites, in which she studies the effects of arts on adolescent development and at-risk children, has very similar data. She recalls a gang interventionist saying that one of the most natural and effective vehicles for gang members is the road of the arts, especially theater, and that new values only emerge through new experiences, and the arts provide a unique laboratory where truth and possibility can be explored safely. She supplements this by bringing up statistics after the development of the STARS program in Fort Myers, Florida, which allows children to participate in all sorts of art-based activities, saying that the city police point to a 28% decline in juvenile arrests since the program was founded in 1989. It should be noted that this article was written in 1996. Whether these two statistics can be directly correlated remains but a mystery, but it surely cannot be disputed that art does impact at-risk children.
Any setting, but specifically one example comes to mind of a high school where it was a second chance high school for at-risk youth. These kids have been to jail 2 or 3 times by the time they're 18 years old, and they don't have any real-world skills. And I had the opportunity to give one kid a camera, and it's been 5 years now, and now he's a professional photographer, has kids, doing well for himself. And it's those moments that you really hold on to in life that make you think about how art and culture are really intertwined, and how business has an implication, and how everything that you do in life affects other people, either positively or negatively. And it's been my goal to just make the most positive impact I can while doing the work that I enjoy.
Not only does it help with at-risk youth, it also provides as a coping mechanism for people with mental and social hindrances. Here's Nathaniel Brooks, who says it helps with his bipolar disorder as well as his autism.
So I've always had problems with emotions, and I've had bipolar for probably since the day I was born. Now how that's helped me, at least in terms of how video games, movies, or even videos has helped me, it provided me a way to kind of stop thinking about how my day is gone, or if I had a really sucky day. It was nice to always come back to my house. It was nice to and still is nice to kind of give away for me to kind of just thinking about something else instead of I went to my school today and a lot of people teased me and they did this and that. There was people that constantly would try to find some way to get myself riled up, and that in a way that it even affected me in a way where sometimes I think, what if I just wasn't there that day? What if I just stayed home? Or what if I just didn't exist? But pretty much at the end of each day, if I did get teased, or I did if I did get in trouble that day, it's nice to come home to play video games, or even to watch movies. There's been a few times in my life where movies have kind of gave me an escape from my boring day, or gave me a way to sort of stop thinking about how one little aspect of my day led to this and that.
Art is also extremely beneficial when it comes to education. But according to many datasets, art is taking the backseat while reading and math take the spotlight. In the Coming Up Tall report, Weitz references the STARS program once again in Florida, saying when it first started that the majority of its students had less than a C average, but now 80% maintain a C average or higher. She also uses the Manchester Craftsman Guild in Pennsylvania, another art program for kids, saying since its conception that 74 to 80% of participants in the program are accepted into college, compared to 20% in the surrounding community. She says that what makes these programs special is that they incorporate art into math and science and reading curriculums as well, which gives the mind a non-traditional approach to learn new things. An arts and composition teacher at Estrella Mountain Community College says she can attest to this and has seen it work in her own curriculum.
I always try to interject art into teaching. I find that students learn better when they're balancing their intellectual and their creative critical thinking skills, and they feed into one another. And I think by the time students get to college, a lot of their artistic sensibilities, their sense of creativeness, their ability to go with the flow or to try something and fail and be okay with it, that's beaten out of them. There's almost no natural curiosity anymore like you have when you're
Despite all of this evidence pointing towards the multitudinous beneficial effects of incorporating art into educational curricula, there's still little to no emphasis on it in the United States. One study by Rhonda M. Main says that 36 state systems of higher education require no fine arts credit for admission. This indicates that a little over 70% of high schools put little to no emphasis on art in their curriculums. Main's article also states the educational pressures of the No Child Left Behind Act forces administrators to focus on the subjects that are tested and reduce or eliminate the funding and time of other subjects such as music, art, electives, and after-school programs. Unfortunately, schools' funding is based off of these standardized test scores, and consequentially, there's a hard push in the curriculums for high scores and good grades in math, reading, and science. There seems to be an emphasis on the destination mindset, when it is proven time and time again that the journey mindset, especially through art, yields the best and most effective results. Finally, my search for the impact of art led me to its utilization in politics and social movements. I actually had the pleasure of seeing it in action when I attended an art walk recently. A group of vegetarian and animal activists were dressed in anonymous clothing while holding screens with very graphic imagery of animals being abused in slaughterhouses. It was an effective way of sending their message without being physical and/or forcefully imposing their presence and ideals. Up until that point, I hadn't really thought of art being utilized for social or political movements. In an article titled "White Art Has the Power to Change the World," author and artist Ulfar Eliasson has a potent statement saying, "The community created by arts and culture is potentially a great source of inspiration for politicians and activists alike who work to transcend the polarizing populism and stigmatization of other people, positions, and worldviews that is sadly so endemic in public discourse today." This almost insinuates that art acts as a mediator for arguments and discourse, leveling the playing field for everyone so everyone has their voice heard in non-polarizing and courteous fashions. Art seems to have this innate and awe-inspiring ability to transcend time and space, gender and ethnicity, politics and social status, and it strikes upon people a feeling of weightless euphoria. It allows people to escape, it provides a safe haven, it connects others, but most importantly, it's the freedom of expression that draws most people in.
The way the internet has developed, I think, does help artists put themselves out there, express themselves more. It helps, discover new people. If you are someone that has an amazing talent and you perceive it as art, others may perceive it as art, and it can lead to good things for you. But it's the internet. Things can go bad. Your art may be made fun of, and then it's not art anymore.
So it discourages you from doing it.
Exactly, yeah. The internet can be very discouraging. Yes.
I think with the internet, obviously, that there's always going to be downfalls. I think everything has a pro and a con to an extent. And so with sharing art and expressing that using the internet, definitely there's downfalls to it, but I think overall it's had such a positive impact because it's such a big platform for people from all over to express different things through various types of art, and it's allowed people to become more educated on our world.
It seems that the future of art living vicariously through social media and other online platforms proves to be fruitful. It allows a more accessible platform for people to connect and express themselves. Though, what does this mean for live art? Social media is a great way for people to discover new things and build intrigue in new and exciting places. My survey indicates that almost 90% of the people surveyed have looked up videos on how to do art projects. Though this also means 60% of people would go online to learn something in opposition to going to a class and learning it. Another survey by Pew Research shows that a little over half of people who use YouTube use it to learn things that they didn't know how to do before. Do these data sets represent the beginning of phasing out live art in art classes? Well, no, actually. In another article written by Eileen Kwon, titled Exploring the Effects of Social Media on Art and Culture One Selfie at a Time, she references a phenomenon known as the Kusama effect. She recalls a museum in New York called Zwirner Gallery, which is one of the most Instagrammed places in the United States as of 2017. This is due to the fantastic works by Yayoi Kusama, who has been an artist for almost 80 years, but has only recently received massive amounts of praise and attention for her works. This is due to her popularity garnered through social media. And during certain events, people will wait patiently upwards of 3 hours just to see her art. More and more museums and art-based companies are making the changes to increase their online presence with hopes of increasing their popularity. Though, with all of these pros, there are the inevitable cons. In the same article by Kuhn, she says that the art landscape on social media is changing and that it no longer is high versus low or culture versus entertainment. It's about relevance or irrelevance. This undoubtedly is the case and is seen with the oversaturation in popular markets. Social media and other online platforms are a great way to provide for potential communal experiences both online and in person. It allows for people to discover new and exciting places and activities and encourages them to participate. However, with the changing platform and societal mindset of relevancy versus irrelevancy, these artists risk being cloned and saturated to the point of losing popularity and attention. And this is the exact opposite of their intentions for their art. The resulting data in this research project has yielded very insightful and impressive conclusions. Although it is still unclear whether or not there is a fundamental structure that qualifies certain things as art and others as non-art, it's best to say that, considering the data collected thus far, art is very much subjected to personal opinion and perspective. One who is not as well versed in a certain subject will not appreciate an art form as much as someone who dedicates their life to it. Art, in regards to education, is shown to be missing in a majority of the curriculum in the United States' school system. This is due to the fact of emphasis being placed on getting funding through good standardized test scores in core subject areas such as math, reading and science, and writing. The fact that incorporating art into these subjects takes time prevents it from being utilized in schools. This is unfortunate due to the obvious beneficial effects art has on the developmental and educational aspects of learning. There's an overwhelming amount of data conveying this, yet there is such a little push for it to be incorporated. The psychological effects of art have been fascinating. It is amazing to see art be used for at-risk and mentally handicapped people to use as coping mechanisms to live a healthy lifestyle. Finally, the future of art is most certainly going to be moving to the social network of the internet. With more and more value being placed on internet presence, artists are pressured to migrate over to these online social platforms. Though, this isn't necessarily the death of live art. Actually, it is connecting these artists to a broader range of people who may not have ever heard about their work before. And with the easy accessibility of the internet, these artists are actually getting more attention because of social media. However, this comes at a cost, as there has been this societal shift in mindset to a relevance versus irrelevance perspective. Art will always be a part of society, and is an important part of any culture. It allows for the purity of self-expression, a healthy outlet, encourages critical thinking, and can be used as a universal language to peacefully discuss political and social topics. I believe there should be a stronger focus on art in society and more specifically education. Art is a very abstract and broad concept, but also is extremely beautiful and awe-inspiring and cathartic. and I believe it should be utilized more in every aspect of life.